these controls and this assurance is so important because, data breaches happen. I mean, now that we have the laws that require disclosure of these breaches, we now, unfortunately, have been reading about them so often that they're going from page 1 to page 23. They're no longer headline news most of the time. One of the largest data breaches ever to have occurred just a few months ago. It dropped, let's see, they actually did the press release the day of President Barack Obama's inauguration. So it was even buried the day it happened. It was on page 8, I think, of the Washington Post. And we've heard little about it since then. That was this breach involving the payment card processor. I don't know. I know about this one with the ATM machines. Again, I think that should have been, page 1 news. It wasn't, of course. I don't even know if the Wall Street Journal covered it. And so these types of things are now so commonplace that they get little or no coverage, but they are happening all the time. Speaking to you as a security professional, I hear about these every day. So it's important that for those of you, the IT managers here listening to me today, you're going to need to ensure your cloud provider is providing you the protections you need. One of the interesting questions that came up on a podcast I was on before last week was, where is the data? What country is the data in? Is it possible that your cloud provider isn't even required to tell you about a compromise? So, you can't rely on, data breach laws or other information, and maybe you want to leverage this. In fact, have your data in a country where you don't have to tell your customers that it was breached. But you certainly want a contractual requirement that the cloud provider has to tell you about problems they've had. You don't want them to be in a position where they can hide from you that there's been a breach. You need to know. All right? So let's follow the yellow brick road here. You want to do some risk management. Before moving into the cloud, you want to understand the data and the risks for the information and the processes that are being moved to the cloud. As you understand those risks, you want to look at what additional controls you may need to have or your cloud provider needs to provide you so that your data is protected. Then you want to be able to measure the effectiveness of these controls. The controls are no good if the provider just says, hey, I've got these great controls, they work all the time, don't worry about it. If that's what the cloud provider is telling you, you need to maybe move on to the next cloud provider or move into a contractual requirement where you're getting a report, pretty high frequency report. I mean, daily would not be too frequent, in my opinion, about the effectiveness of their controls. And then as you see that effectiveness, you'll know whether they're good enough or not. And if necessary, you can go back to the cloud provider and make improvements. So you should have SLAs around those controls. Just like you have SLAs around availability or bandwidth or storage or what have you in the cloud, you need to have SLAs around security and data protection, because that way, if the controls are not working to your satisfaction, you can have some contractual teeth to go back to the cloud provider and get some improvements. All right, these are very important. In fact, I could probably stop here, and I've told you all the things you need to know, but I want to make sure I cover some of the other issues here and give you some examples. And please, if you have any questions about me, about this presentation, please go ahead and ask. I do believe this presentation is going to be made available. At the end of this presentation, I have my email address. You can just email me, and I'll send it to you as well. But I do believe the presentation will be posted. All right, so data protection here in the cloud. So on the left, I have public data. So imagine that is your pure website that you just want it out there, highly available, high performing, so that all of your customers can see it 24/7. All right, that's one kind of data that's in the cloud. And then we have private data. Maybe it's medical information, maybe it's financial information, other types of sensitive information. And that sensitivity could be increasing, right, into very confidential intellectual property, trade secret type information. Trust me, if you've got email in the cloud, you have trade secrets in the cloud. So your requirements for security are increasing, going from left to right, And then your need for increased audit controls are also increasing as you go top to bottom here. So even if it's just pure public data, you have a risk in terms of denial of service